Well, hey, hi there. Welcome back. How's everyone doing? Today we're going to kind of tackle this idea of sums and differences, something we've been talking a lot about, and how we're using that with decimals, another thing we're talking a lot about, and whole numbers, something we'll kind of always talk about. So, quick review, vocabulary words that make it very important. Remember, sums is the answer to an addition problem. And a difference, go like this, is the answer to a subtraction problem. So we're going to be adding and subtracting whole numbers and decimals. So remember, whole numbers themselves, right? Whole numbers themselves would be this idea of 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 7, 10, 173. Like all these are whole numbers. They're just the numbers themselves. They don't live in that world of decimals or fractional points. And then remember that the decimals are parts of whole numbers. So in order to do this work today, we kind of want to think about our process of steps as always. So 1, we want to convert. I'll talk about that. And then 2, we're going to line up our place values. And then 3, follow our operation. And then drop the decimal. And all of this, of course, will be explained as we go along. So let's just kind of dive into that. So 1, convert. 2, line up your place values. And 3, have the operation or follow the operation, drop the decimal. So let's look at our first example here. Oh, or not. Here we go. So our first example is 5 minus 3 and 8/600. So if you remember again, our first step here is to convert. Now, what I mean by convert is we want them to be the same. This is a very helpful tip in all of math. If I'm going to subtract decimals from something, then I kind of want them all to be decimals or vice versa. So I either want to make these both whole numbers or I want to make them both decimals. Well, the reality is I cannot take this decimal here and just make it a whole number. That would change its value altogether. So really my only option here is to convert whole numbers into equivalent decimals. So the real step behind that, if you remember, and this is review, and if it doesn't feel like a review, that's okay. Here's the moment to learn it, but we've talked about this in class. If I have a whole number like 3, well, that 3 is in the ones place. And if I wanted that to be a decimal, well, then I'm just going to make sure I have a decimal point. And I have no values in my decimal place values. Therefore, I can use 0 as a placeholder. So like 3 is equivalent to 3 and 0/10, or just 3. Those are exactly the same. So if I'm taking a whole number and I want to make it a decimal, no matter what that whole number is, I can just rewrite it by giving the decimal place values, but filling them with place values. And that could go on. I could do multiple zeros after that. That's the trailing 0, another thing we talked about in class, right? So 32 maybe. I could say that's 32 and zeros. These are equivalent. They're the same value because again, these are all zeros. So they don't carry anything, right? So that's what we mean by convert. We want to make them both decimals. So my option to do that here is great. I'm going to go ahead and convert after I erase all this. Convert all this. And that just means I'm going to make this 5 and 0. Well, let's see. I have a tenth and a hundredth. So maybe I'll do a tenths and a hundredths here. So 5 and 0/100ths, or 5.00. Not really a language I like. 5 and 0/100ths. Don't like using that word point. And then we're going to subtract that from 3 and 8/600ths. Okay, so that's step 1 done. We've converted. What color did I use? Oh, pink. Okay, so next, right, we're going to line up or stack. So I want my place values to be the same. So here's that skill again that I've been talking about in class is we're going to take that first decimal and we're going to write that one down, 5 and 0/100ths. And then I'm going to use this decimal and anchor the bottom number. So I'm going to put the decimal right below it because we always want our decimals stacked up to help us with place value. And then I can see, okay, well, in the ones place, there's a 3. So a 3 goes here. Tenths place, I got an 8. And after the 8 is a 6. So everything right here is lined up, right? I have my ones place, my tens place, and my hundreds place. So those are there and stacked up. So now I am subtracting. So I want to note the operation. That's the next thing. Sorry, I forgot my colors. Oh, green. Okay, let's use green now. So I'm going to note my operation. So we're subtracting and I'm going to just do so. So I'm going to start in the ones place, or excuse me, the hundreds place. And remember, the top number is what you have. The bottom number is what you're taking, right? So here we're just going to do our operation. Sorry, I forgot to write down our step. So if I have 0 hundredths and I'm supposed to take 6 hundredths away, well, I cannot do that. So that is where we go and we decompose. Well, if I go over to the tens place, I have no tenth to decompose. So I'm going to go to the ones place and I'm going to take a 1. Oops, wrong. I'm going to take a 1 and I'm going to leave me with 4 ones and I'm going to decompose that 10 or that 1 into 10 tenths. But remember, it wasn't the tenths we needed 100. Take a tenth and decompose that into 10 tenths. Therefore, I now can start my work because again, the top number is what you have, the bottom number is what you're taking. So 10 hundredths minus 6 hundredths leaves me with 4 hundredths. 9 tenths minus 8 tenths leaves me with 1 tenth. And then 4 ones minus 1 1 or 3 ones leaves me a 1. And then again, the last part with the decimal is you just drop it. Drop it. So the decimal, as I say, is so heavy, you just go boom, straight down. And there we have it. 5 minus 3 and 86 hundredths gives me 1 and 1, or 1 and 14 hundredths. Okay, so again, what's really important about this skill is understanding where your place values are. Like that second step's important and it's really hard to do if you don't do step 1. So continue to practice this. So here's our second one. And we have 32 plus 7 and 86 hundredths, right? So this is kind of what I've seen in the past. This is a common thing. Oh, 32, cool. Cool, now I'm gonna add, cool. I don't know why I keep saying this is cool. But that's not how that works, right? Because we're not really thinking about what these numbers really mean. We're not thinking about the real plus value because again, this 2 is in the ones place, but this 8 is in the tenths place, and I cannot add ones and tenths in the same place value. So again, this just goes back to the steps that we were practicing. So let's practice those steps again. So we are going to convert. We are going to stack. And then we're just going to note our operation and solve it. And this does say convert, not coert. I don't even what? What does that say? Convert. Okay, so step 1, convert. That means I want to make them both decimals. This is already a decimal. I don't have to do anything with it. This is a whole number. I want to change it into a decimal. And as we know, any whole number, I just write, I give the decimal, and then I have nothing in the decimal place values, right? There are no tenths, so I can put a 0. There are no hundreds, so I can put a 0 and plus 7 and 86 hundredths. Cool, so I converted. Next, we're going to stack these up by place values. Again, I'm going to use the first number, and then I like to anchor down that decimal and use that as reference for place values. I noticed to the right of it, there's an 8 in the tenths place, and then next to the 8 in the hundreds place is a 6. So you can see already, look where these are lining up, right? Everything's getting lined up where it belongs. That's super important. And then in the ones place, I have a 7. Okay. And then here's the important part. I want to note my operation, right? I want to note here that we are adding. So I want to make sure I add instead of subtract or vice versa. That's a common error. Sometimes we just do the wrong operation. We know all the steps, wrong operation. So all the way over to the hundreds, I have 0 hundredths plus 6 hundredths. That gives me 6. I have 0 hundredths plus 8, or excuse me, 0 tenths plus 8 tenths. That gives me 8 tenths. I have 2 ones plus 7 ones. That gets me 9 ones, and 3 tenths plus nothing gets me 3 tenths. And then my decimal is so heavy, straight down. And there's my answer. So 32 plus 7 and 8600 just gets me 39 8600. So that works pretty good with addition because we're just like, there's actually a lot of zeros we're working with, which makes our life easier. All right, let's put this together one more. So here's that one again. Try this one if you want. Pause the video, try it out, give it a go, come on back, and then watch and see how we did. So welcome back. Haha, see, I love always pretending like you paused forever. Well, maybe you did. I just said welcome back right away. That's how videos work. This is not helping us. Okay, let's go see what we did. So again, 3-step process. Convert, line up or stack our place values. And then again, note the operation and then drop operation and then drop that decimal. Okay. So again, convert means I just want to make them the same. This is a decimal. This is a whole number. I'm going to make them both decimals. Again, I cannot make this a whole number. That changes its value. So that's why really I'm always just taking the whole number and I'm making an equivalent decimal. We know we can do that by just saying, okay, I have a 1 in the ones place. I have no tenths. I have no hundreds. I have no thousandths. And then I go here. So again, this is the same thing as 1. This just says 1. It really says 1 and 0 thousandths, but we just say 1, right? I don't walk around saying I have $1 and 0 quarters in my pocket. I just say I have $1. So again, we can just call this 1, but we can write it as a decimal. All right, now let's stack it up. So I'm going to take, again, it's always the first number. That's the one that goes on top. That's what you have, the first number in a linear equation or expression or number sentence or whatever it is. The first number is the one that goes on top. It's the one you're starting with, the 1. So I have 1, 0, 0, 0. Again, I'm going to line up my decimals first and then use those as guidance. So in the ones place, I see there's a 0. In the tenths place, there's a 6, hundredths, thousandths. So everything's lined up. Okay. And let's see, our operation is subtraction. We're finding the difference here. So I'm starting with 0. I need to take 1 away. I can't do that. If I have $0, I can't buy something for $1. So let's go decompose. There's nothing.